In the daytime, it's just an empty lot. Nothing but a rich collection of dirt, weeds and tall grasses that stretch all the way to the trees. But every now and then, when the moon is just right and when the air is so cold it hurts to breathe, the house appears at night. It's always the same, a dark 19th century Victorian mansion, complete with spires and enormous windows, the kind of place you would never see out here in the boonies. I had trouble believing it was real the first time. One of my college mates played a prank and gave me a cookie which was a potent edible. I was up all night at home waiting for the unexpected high to pass. That's when I first noticed the house, fully built, standing some odd 30 yards away. It was quite an experience seeing a magical haunted mansion while thoroughly tripping. I thought it was just the THC playing tricks on me, but by the time I sobered up around 4:00 a.m., the house was still there. It was too real to be a hallucination and too vivid to be a trick of the light. I took pictures on my phone from the living room, bathroom, and even the balcony. The house was a real structure. A real, creepy, pitch-black-looking abode that gave an indisputable bad vibe. And then as soon as dawn broke, it faded away. Over breakfast, I explained to my grandma what I had seen and even showed her photos. But she waved away all my nonsense. "Ain't been anything there for 60 years, she would say. "Don't conjure what isn't." I brought it up a few more times, but Grandma would always shut it down. "We're the only ones that live on this road, Robert. Don't be ridiculous. Are you on drugs?" Maybe I was just on drugs. The house didn't reappear any night after that, so I went back to focusing on school. The whole reason I moved out to live with Grandma was because her place was only an hour-long bus ride to college. But then came another evening when I stayed up late finishing an essay. When I went to grab some juice from the fridge, I saw it peering from the large kitchen window. The house. It was back. This time it appeared much more alive than before. A glowing fuchsia color shined out from its innards, and there appeared to be movement behind its windows. I knew I wasn't tripping again because I was writing my schoolwork. I was sober AF. Closing my laptop, I excitedly unboxed some binoculars. That's how I saw the shadows inside. It was way too dark to make out anything past silhouettes, but I definitely saw the tops of heads and shoulders pass by the windows and settle in various spots in the house. They moved with a casual, low-key energy as if everyone was worn out but still awake. Restless. Who were these people? And how were they inside this place? Then my attention turned to the trees ruffling behind the house, where a tall figure emerged from the woods. An immediate knot tied itself in my stomach. I had never seen anything like this person. He wore a velvet-looking frock, above an embroidered vest and waist-high trousers, which were all somehow tailor-made to fit his 8-foot-long arms and legs. He moved like some anthropoid stick bug, shuffling and ambling, often using one of his long arms as another leg. Eventually this bizarre 19th century aristocrat spider hunched over the door, took a glance at me and raised his arm. I wanted to turn away but I couldn't. I was frozen. The figure's hollow eyes, even from that distance, felt like they were staring directly at me. His skeletal fingers made the come-hither motion. He recognized my fascination. He knew I was being drawn to the house. He knew I was watching. He knew. I wanted a deeper peek. The next morning, my grandma handed me a letter in a brown envelope with no return address. She said it must have come from my parents. I opened the letter and knew right away that it didn't. There was only a single piece of parchment inside, withered and worn. In thick black ink, only 2 words were written in very old cursive. "You're invited." Where did you get this letter? Where do you think? My grandma poured herself coffee. The mailbox. Who dropped it off? Who do you think? My grandma burned her lips on the coffee. The mailman. The mailman? You saw him. Jesus Christ, Robert. Yes, the mailman. He comes every morning round 8 when there's mail. How do you think mail works? Are you on drugs? Full disclosure, back with my parents, I did go through a phase where I was smoking a lot of pot. They told my grandma there would be 0 tolerance if I was ever caught blazing. They threatened with military school, community service, etc. So I've been careful only to blaze on the school grounds. Never near grandma's. No, grandma, I was just wondering about the letter is all. Nothing else to wonder about. Now eat your breakfast. That night, after Grams went to bed, I played some Civ 6 to pass the time, eagerly awaiting midnight. Every 10 minutes I checked to see if that empty lot sprouted anything. But it stayed empty. By about 12:30 a.m., the house still hadn't arrived and I was disappointed. In a last-ditch effort, I put on several layers and brought one of my secret blunts with me. The first night I had seen the mansion when I was accidentally high, so I figured it couldn't hurt to smoke a little now and see what would happen. After quietly closing the front door, I walked several feet away to make sure the light in Grandma's room was still off. She was sleeping. With utmost secrecy, I brought the blunt and lighter to my lips, when a chill wind snuffed out the flame. My fingers went cold, my stomach formed a knot. The house had returned. And this time it was standing closer than ever before. Barely 3 car lengths separated my grandma's place from its front doors. It's like it was presenting itself. I walked toward it, driven by an impulse I couldn't explain. The air was thick, almost electric. I just had to take a peek. The normally untamed weeds and bushes were now suddenly pruned and lining a cobblestone path toward the house. I walked along the polished granite pieces until I reached the first wooden step. My heart slowed. The shadows inside seemed to shift, like something was moving toward the door. I inched backward ever so slightly, keeping my eyes on the knob. A figure, tall and thin like the one I'd seen before, stepped behind the frosted glass. Within moments, the front door swung open and his strange limbs came clambering beneath the wooden frame. The second I made eye contact, I met the strangest, most disarming smile I've ever seen in my entire life. For a moment, it felt like I had known this man for a long time, like this guy was the uncle I used to visit each year. Only I knew that couldn't be true. The smile had some kind of aura. Something that emanated a fake nostalgia. I couldn't really put it in words when it was happening, but I am telling you now in retrospect. This guy had a powerful charm in between his gleaming teeth. My boy. My lad. It would appear as though you have accepted my invitation. Yes, indeed. The 19th century aristocrat spidered over to me at a somewhat alarming speed. Please allow me to introduce myself. I am Reginald Bedingfield Hollows, Esquire, the proprietor of this fine estate. His left hand effortlessly brushed the ceiling of the awning high above us. And you, my lad, simply must come inside. We have been dying to meet you. The demand is insatiable, my good boy. Inching away, I responded in a hushed tone. Oh, who's been dying to meet me? Your friends? Inside the house. He tried to follow my gaze. They all know you, dear lad. They've been watching you for a long time. Come in. Come in. I could hear faint voices coming from deeper inside. It did kind of sound like a low-key house party. Somebody was delicately playing the piano. Can I think about it? Think about it? Reginald laughed a perfectly pitched high society laugh. What's there to think about, my boy? You've already accepted by arriving at my doorstep. You want to come in? My stomach was tensing up into some kind of triple knot. I was finding it hard to walk backwards. In fact, it would be quite rude not to come in. Quite rude indeed. Reginald's smile slowly dissipated. Especially after all the effort we put in. Today was going to be your night, Robert. They're all going to be so disappointed. How did he know my name? Like some kind of flexible insect, he scooped his head down low to meet my line of sight. His teeth beamed at me with a glossy shimmer. You want to come in, Robert? We both know that. It'll be fun. Although I could feel my stomach contort itself further, an immense feeling of trust also breezed through my chest. It's like this was the 500th time I've met Reginald. It'll be fun? Riotous, Robert. A fete in your honor. A feast. A dance. The string quartet has been practicing for ages. Again, that feeling of trust. I went from being merely tipsy to fully drunk on Reginald's nostalgia magic. His arm lightly rested on my back, guiding me through the front doors. I entered the house. The air was cold. Freezing, in fact. I could see my breath in the dim light. The flickering purple glow came from several gaslit sconces on the ceiling. The walls seemed to stretch and warp, like the house wasn't quite real. Like it was bending around me, enclosing me. I wasn't alone either. Figures moved in the shadows, their forms indistinct, their heads tilted in my direction. They looked human, but just barely. They watching me without blinking, staring with wide eyes. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But I couldn't. All the walls and doors bended away from my touch. It felt like the house had a grip on my very soul, like it was pulling me deeper into its endless corridors. One of the figures stepped forward. A girl also about my age, her face was pale and stretched like a mask. She wore clothes that may have been in fashion about 20 years ago. You don't belong out there anymore, she said softly, his voice almost tender. You belong here now. You're one of us now. It was a mistake to step inside. Once you've seen what's behind those purple-lit windows, there's no escaping. The house never lets you go. I've had loads of time trapped in this house where nothing changes. I don't get hungry. I don't get sleepy. The police can't see the house, and they blocked me for calling them too many times with my wild stories. My phone has been permanently stuck at 23% battery for God knows how long. Time doesn't seem to exist here. Only warping corridors and college kids who all say the same thing. I came out here to live with Grandma. It was only an hour-long bus ride to school. Across one of the ever-shifting hallways I once discovered a painting of my grandma wearing the same kind of aristocratic clothing as Reginald. She stared out with the same passive face, those same disinterested eyes. I've typed this story out on my phone, searching for help. I wish I could tell you where to look, but I have no idea where I am. The windows stretch away from me. If you ever see a mansion that only appears at night, and you come across a tall, spidery man that looks like Reginald, tell him that you are inviting me, Robert, to come outside. I believe there might be some kind of magic in the use of invitation. Some kind of sanctuary. At least I hope so. It's my only chance of escape. If someone who reads this does find a way to free me from this limbo, I promise you my everlasting thanks. As a bonus, I'll give you this joint that never seems to run out.